Hey guys, most of this video was actually recorded a little while ago, and some of the processes have changed. Not only that, but of course, with every project, there are bugs and things like that that come up, and things might be a little bit different for you. So what I'm going to do is I'll leave this video as is. I'll continue to show you what I did, but there's a very high chance that there are going to be some problems with your project. There's a very high chance there's going to be some things that have changed. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description, and that will give you a step-by-step guide from Apple telling you how to put your app on the App Store. All you need to know though is basically after you export from Unity, it's now then in the world of Xcode, and you'll be building an Xcode app project. So without further ado, let's start this episode. Welcome back to another episode, guys, and as promised, we have some issues. Like I said I would guarantee, as I finished the last episode, I was testing some things and noticed that some of our code was bad. So let me just explain what happened, in case anyone's come to the same problem. Basically, we created this code in Player Collide that says, if is invisible equals false, can take damage, right? That's all. That's totally fine. Everything looks good in one aspect, but not in others. Now, if I press play, you'll see this is just going to fall down. The log's going to touch me, and then the invincibility thing is going to touch me. And just watch what happens. Before I just press play. Dude. So now I am invincible, but my character isn't showing it. So if I quickly I don't collide with anything. The reason that is because I actually am invincible, but this line of code is still running. So all we need to do is cut that and actually place it in this if statement as well, because we only want to turn the color back to normal if invisibility is false, and we only want to change the pitch of the music if invincibility equals false. So save that. And the other thing I wanted to add was I actually updated the soundtrack and the menu music. So we're going to quickly just take a look at that and quickly add that before we export our project, and we can delete these now. So if we go to the player and we scroll down to the audio source and we just make sure that it is selected to none, you used to have a soundtrack clip in there. And then if we go to our scripts folder and we go to audio source, we can add the menu track that I've created, menu music, and turn it on, play on awake and loop, and that will work totally fine. Then if we open up our game initialize script, and we create a couple of new variables. We create a public audio clip soundtrack, cool, and then we just go straight down to our start game enumerator, and we write simply audio clip. Audio source. This is called audio equals get component audio source, and then we want to say audio dot clip equals soundtrack, and then audio. So now we want to play that soundtrack, and then we want to say, and then that's it. We could actually just change this to audio.play one shot, but let's just leave it. There's no need to change it. You could just, because now we've referenced the audio source, we don't have to put in this get component section, but for easiness sake, let's just leave it for now. Well, forever, I suppose. Okay, and the other thing I just wanted to quickly touch on is we could create a splash screen quite easily. I thought about so if we go to sort of here as well, and we create a public game object splash screen. I know Unity has a built-in splash screen, especially for pro users, but I want to have a little bit more control over it, and so I'll just code it in this way. And then I just want to create a public static is important, float splash screen timer. And then inside of update, we are just going to write splash screen ss timer minus equals time dot delta time. We've done this before. If splash screen timer is less than 0, then ss dot setact splash screen dot setActive false. Fantastic. And cool. And in awake, we want to say splash screen dot setActive equals, we just need to write true. Cool, and that should all work fine. If we go over to, if we go back, and we've got to make sure we say that our splash screen time equals 3.0f. Let's say it's a good amount. So that means it'll wait for 3 seconds and then get rid of the splash screen. We can always adjust that later. I've created a basic sprite for my company, davidsinternetwebsite.com. It's just a little blog about myself. We can literally just go to menu, create a new empty game object, call it splash screen. It's all zeroed out, that's good. Put a sprite renderer on it, click and drag over my splash screen. Let's make it 1.5 by 1.5, and we can put it into the foreground and make sure we put a 1 on there. So definitely nothing is going to be in front of it unless it's on like layer 2, but we're not. We can actually put that as at 100, but let's just leave it at 1. And so happy days. So when we press play, it should stay on this. Well, actually, let's turn it off. So when we press play, we're gonna have a null reference exception. We've got to go to scripts and actually assign everything. So our soundtrack, if I go back to our audio, back to scripts, and don't need this original soundtrack because I've updated the soundtrack, and come on, and we go to scripts, and we bring over the soundtrack, and then the splash screen as well. In the menu, bring over the splash screen, and then if we press play, it should pop up for 3 seconds. Cool, and then when we press play, that's the cool new music for the menu, and the updated soundtrack. And let me just die quickly. So that works. Die to hit again. And because we made the splash screen static, we press play. It's already still at 0. It's counting down still. And so yeah, we can just press play again, and everything's fine. But if I stop it and get back into it, David's Internet Website pops up. Cool. So that is basically the little things that I said that we would fix. Now we can jump straight into doing the actual Xcode iTunes Connect kind of stuff. So first thing you want to do is we want to open up scripts, and let's actually save our project. File, save scene, file, save project. And we want to go to, I think it's game initialize. And we want to change this leaderboard to something that's not that. And we want to make sure it's whatever we choose this to be. Obviously, I'm going to change mine secretly, and because it's very private information, and we'll need to put that in with iTunes Connect in the future. So just change that, or if you probably already have to something along the same lines as that, but just keep it private. And then we can go to File, Build Settings. Here's where it gets interesting, guys. And go to Player Settings. Alright, so we can adjust some of our information here. So, first things first, I'm going to change the company name to David McDonald, because that's who I am, that's my company. Change the default icon, you just click select, and I just chose the logo. I think you can find the icon resolutions and things on the Apple website. It has it all down there, like the dimensions for that if you are designing a logo. Auto rotation is fine. We don't want to ever work in portrait, don't ever want to work in portrait upside down, only landscape left and landscape right. Requires full screen, yes of course. Our icon is already filled out because we filled it up the top. Our splash images, we're just going to leave it as default. That's all fine. Debugging and crash reports, that's all okay as well. All this kind of stuff is totally fine. But in here is probably the most important thing. So the bundle identifier is something that it's like a unique identifier that Apple will use to determine, like, so you can, like, it's Apple's way of knowing what app is what. It's like what's your identifier for your game. This is the most important thing to keep private in everything that you do. So yeah, make sure you keep it private. And usually they want you to, I'm not sure how strict it is these days, but they want you to have bundle identifier written in a way that's like com dot whatever your website is, so David's internet website dot whatever the game is, so like Super Keegan dot 2016 or something like that, and they want you to do that. Keep it like so it's like very, very unique to your game. No one else is going to have that same bundle identifier. So fill in that. Obviously, I'm not going to show you what I fill in mine because that's also private information. And fill it in with something that you'll be able to remember. And then once you've done all that, you'll be able to go and press build, and then we'll be able to build our app. Now, I'll just quickly fill out my information. Okay, so I've filled out all that information, and now one last thing before we click the build button is we want to go over to player, and we want to turn is touch to true, because otherwise our touch controls won't work. And then we can go back to file, build settings, and we can click build. All these settings are fine, just as standard, and I'm going to call this Super Keegan and save it to my desktop. And click save. And now it starts compiling all the scripts and creating our Xcode project. So if you don't have Xcode installed, downloaded and installed, do that now. Hopefully you do, and we can jump straight into working with Xcode and uploading our app to our phones and then to Apple. Cool. So if we then go to the Super Keegan folder that we have on the desktop and we open up the Unity Xcode project file, this will open up Xcode. And there's something I need to say about this. This whole process, it's never going to run smoothly. Like, just, you've got to get that out of your mind. It's okay, your app's not broken, there might be some bugs, there might be some problems here and there, It might work one time and then not work another time. Unfortunately, that's just how it is working with Xcode and working with Unity and mixing the two. And when you're releasing any type of product on any major platform like this, where you need to use their API, there's going to be some issues. That's okay. Just work through it. When I first did my first game, I actually said that the what did I say? I said, when you have finished your game in Unity, you're halfway through development, because it took me so long to be confident in the stuff that was happening in Xcode. But if I was to give any advice to myself now, or to you if this is your first game that you're releasing on the App Store, is don't freak out. Everything is okay. If you get an error report back from Apple and they tell you what problems you have with your app, then just go on forums, post, fix them. It's all right. You don't need to rush. Like, just take it easy and try and enjoy the process. But a lot of this is going to be very tedious, and it isn't going to be very interesting. So I won't go into great detail. One, because I don't really know, like, I'm not an expert at Xcode or anything like that, but I would just know what I've done to get my app out, and it's worked before. Okay, cool. So when we first open up Xcode, we're brought to this screen. We can see our Unity iPhone I suppose scheme, or the app is there, and we can actually choose here if we want to use a generic iOS device. But I've actually plugged in my iPhone, so we can just have the iPhone there. Down here is I suppose like where you can access, like if you click on this button, it'll bring up this here with your bundle identifier filled in, with your version, with your build, your deployment target. If you want it to work on just iPhones or Universal, I would suggest always using Universal, because it just makes it better, and like more people can reach. And if we go over to build settings, and general, what it's going to do is it's going to ask us for a team. Now, before I do that, I'm going to take us to iTunes Connect and just talk about a few things from the website. Right. We're going to go over to just type in on Google developer Apple. Man, my spelling was bad. Developer Apple. So if we go to developer.apple and we go to Members Center, obviously you would purchase your if you haven't set it up, obviously you can go here and you can find where to sign up for an Apple developers account, and we can just click that's my information there, and we click sign in, and then it signs you in, and then I'm not sure, I did this a long time ago, but I'm not sure how it is now, but it'll probably ask you for to fill in your information when you sign up for your account. But one thing that we need to look at first of all is if we go to certificates, identifiers, and profiles, and we click on iOS, you've got certificates, which is like do you have a certificate to distribute your app or to develop your app, and you want to download and install them. You've got identifiers, devices, and provisioning profiles. And if you just click on, let's we go to certificates, you can see I've got an iOS development certificate and a distribution certificate. I suppose my app IDs, we got like a bunch of them here. I'm going to have to blur all that, I'm sure. Different versions that I have of my my Apple apps that from Xcode, because Xcode will handle all that, and all the devices that people have been using. I'm going to have to blur that again. All my friends have been testing it. And my provisioning profiles. What provisioning profiles are is your ability to use your app on that device. So with Android, or with like a lot of like open source things, you can just like drag devices. Sorry, you can just click and drag across your app or your game, and it will run totally fine. Like on Android, I just literally dragged my game across, and it worked fine. After I exported, obviously. Not the same case with Apple. Apple's more closed. It's more of like a closed book, and you need to like get permission from your device and from Apple to run that app. And it's a good thing, because it stops like problems, and that's why 99% of malware is on Android, is because and only 1% is on Apple, because Apple have such a closed and secure system. Actually, we can go straight back to Xcode now, and under Team, we can just click on this. Now, I've got my team here that I've already set up. But if you don't have a team, just click Add an account, and it'll it'll prompt you to set up an account, and you can just follow the things there. But for me, I'm just going to select my account that I've already set up, and now it's saying no matching provisional profiles found. None of the valid provisional profiles allowed for the specific abilities features Game Center. And you can just click. Xcode is really awesome. I never used to do this, but now it does. Click Fix Issue, and it fixes the issue. And it just and it usually just fixes the issue. Cool. See what I mean by not a fluid experience. They save that for the consumers, I think Apple do. But yeah, first time it didn't work, second time it does work. If you go to build settings, just make sure everything is okay. If anything's written in red, it isn't okay. And then we can just click product and click clean. I like to do a clean before I do anything. It cleans the project out. And then from this menu, we can select your iPhone that you have plugged in, and the project's all set up. And then you can just press the play button. And then what that does is it starts building Unity iPhone to the iPhone, and it takes a long time. So this is where you can go get a cup of coffee, do whatever you want, and what it'll do is, first things first actually, first thing, we can actually press stop, and it'll say that was cancelled. First thing is notice that it's noticed some errors, and they're not like game-breaking errors, but it's just suggesting here that we should update to recommended settings. And it brings up a list of settings that need to be updated, and it's just a good idea to perform those changes. And it's just automatically select architectures, just things like that. So I'm just going to perform those changes, and it's all fixed now. And then I'm going to press play again, and hopefully it builds successfully. Cool. So as we wait for that to build, I'll obviously fast forward the video, and I'll see you guys when it's loaded onto the iPhone. Okay, so you see that we've got our app now on the iPhone. So if we just click on that and open it up, our sweet menu plays, that pops up. Sweet. All the touchscreens work. If we press Super Keygen, we can move. Awesome. So the games seem to be testing alright, which is good. Cool. Oh, there's one more thing we needed to check before I just get out of it. So our high score works good. If we press the Game Center button, it brings up Game Center, which is what we want. But obviously we haven't got the Game Center functionality working yet through iTunes Connect. And if we click on my website, we'll go to my website. We'll just test that. Yep, sweet. So that works all fine. Okay, back over to Unity to just fix a couple of the problems. Obviously our splash screen wasn't working correctly, and I just realized that we don't need to do like a bunch of stuff that I did. So if we just go into game initialize, game init script, we can get rid of the that, we can get rid of the splash screen, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of everything, all the splash screen stuff we don't need anymore. And the reason is because we can go to, I knew this was a feature, but I just didn't for some reason want to use it. Go to build settings, and we just go player settings. We can literally just set the legacy launch images, the mobile splash screens right there. That's it. That's all we need to do. And so yeah, and you can set each one obviously like if you want. I'm not sure if you have to or not, but I'm just going to do that. Okay, so I've set them all, and so that's fine. So we don't actually that's it. Now our game will actually launch with that screen that shows up for a few seconds, and that's all we want. The other thing that we have a problem with is because we changed the audio system, we from working with the player to working with a scripts, we need to actually go to the player collide script, and we need to create a public game object scripts game object. Call it scripts game object. Cut this. We don't put it in the where we put all the other scripts, all the other game objects. And if we just go down to invincibility, we can, instead of saying gameObject.audioSource.pitch, we say scripts. Scripts game object. Because right now it wasn't changing the music, which is running through the scripts audio source. It was changing the audio source attached to this, so just the player's voice would change, and that's it. So we can also do that down here. I think. Cool, fantastic. All right, so and that's it. So if we go back and we give it a test run, make sure you've got your player controls working. Everything is fine, and make sure we obviously drag over the scripts game object to the scripts game object. And now we can just obviously turn the is touch on. We can go. We probably should delete the splash screen. There we go. And if we go File, Build Settings, we can click Build. It'll ask us to save the same file as the same location. We just click Save, and then we can just click Append, and that's totally fine. So after that builds, we'll be able to open up the Xcode project and build it again for the iPhone and test it again. Okay, so this time it built successfully and everything is working well. Now we can move over to back to our developer.apple.com account review, our developer portal, and we can click on Member Center, and we can go to iTunes Connect. Cool, and it should prompt you to log in, and after you've logged in, you should have this page. You can set up, here it's really awesome, you can set up your apps, you can view your app analytics, you can view your sales and trends, you can view your payments and financial reports, and you can you can set up your iAds. And this part down here is really important. I'm just going to click on it. It's agreements and tax and banking. This part was the part that gave me the biggest nightmare. What you want to do is you want to, your buttons will obviously be different, but you want to set, you'll have to set up each one of these if you plan on selling your app, making any money off iAds, not Unity ads or anything like that, but Apple specific iAds. You need to set up agreements for the world. You need to do tax forms for like America. You need to do tax forms for like Australia. You need to even do certain tax forms for Japan. It is the furthest thing from game design, but it's something that game developers need to do if you want to make money. You have to do the business side of game design. That's part of being indie. So after you've got all that set up, unless you're making a free app, you can go back to just this section here, and we can click on My Apps. So after we click on My Apps, we can create a new app by pressing the plus button. You'll see I've got my two other apps here. We've got Galaxy Cube version 1.1, and it says it's ready for sale. And we got this one, a pay-to-win game I was working on called for iOS called 1.0. You can steal that idea if you want. Basically, it was a social commentary on paying to win, where someone literally just pays and then they win, and the person who pays the most wins. It was a silly idea, but I was making it as a commentary on the pay-to-win platform. Anyway, press the new plus button and click New App. And it's going to ask you what platform for. We want to do it for iOS. You can, all this information here, you can pretty well, like, you just click on the information and it tells you there. So for me, it's going to be, my app is going to be called Super Keegan. Primary language is Australian English. My bundle identifier, I'll have to choose that from the list of bundle identifiers I have down here that we have set up in Xcode. So for your SKU number, you can just write in anything. It's just a personal number that you can have for whatever you want to have. I'm just going to put in a number for myself. Cool. After that, we'll be taken to this page here where you can see the name, the privacy policy, which is optional, bundle identifier, SKU number, all the kind of stuff like here. We can click on features, and you'll see that we have in-app purchases in Game Center. We don't have any in-app purchases, so we don't need to worry about that. We'll click on Game Center. We can actually add a leaderboard, and it's going to ask us what type of leaderboard we want. We want a single leaderboard because this is what we set up inside of Unity. Click choose. And just while it's doing that, I'm going to go back to Unity and I'm going to find my leaderboard ID. And you can just call this internal name that must provide for each leaderboard. It is a name that you should use if you search for the leaderboard within iTunes Connect. So I'm just going to say Super Keegan High Score. Simple enough. Leaderboard ID. This is the ID that we set up inside of Unity. It needs to be exactly the same as when we set it up inside of Unity. Choose the format. We're going to just choose an integer because that's just single numbers. And the score submission type is the best score. And the sort order, we want to go from highest to lowest. And a score range is optional. We don't need to do that. And we need to add a language. It's better to add literally every single language that you can possibly think of, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm just going to fill out the English one. So our name needs to be the display name of the leaderboard. So I'm just going to call it high score. Format will be integers, just like that, I suppose. Okay, so you see that we got our back on in our Game Center section, we've got our Super Keegan High Score here, and that is all good. Okay, so if we go over to the App Store button and we click down on Prepare for Submission here, that's where our app is at. It can ask us, it'll ask us to supply screenshots for all of these devices, and you'll want to set up and do all that. I won't bore you with doing that now. You want to fill out a description. This needs to be make it a good description because it's what people are going to see. And down here, this is important. You're going to have your app logo. You're going to have the name of the person who owns this, copyright information. All the information is kind of there, but we want to click on the Game Center button, and we want to add the leaderboard Super Keegan. Cool. And then once that's added, then we can put in all our information, and I'm just going to fill out that information now, including screenshots and descriptions and keywords and things like that, and then we'll get on to the next step. Okay, so after we've filled out our application information, our description, and our icons, we can go down to the rating system and click Edit. You can make sure you choose all the correct ones. Because we have a web link, we have to click Unrestricted Web Access, and then Done. And make sure you fill out all your information. I won't keep scrolling because I'll keep having to blur things. And then click Save. Awesome. Okay, so the next step. So back in Xcode, this is a section that I think if anything was to change by the time this video came out, or in the future, that this section will have changed. But if you just go through build settings and resource settings and just make sure that your settings line up with the link in the descriptions tutorial, you should be fine. So first thing you want to do is you want to go to Product and you want to go to Archive. What this will do is it'll archive the project ready for submitting to the App Store. So once that is done, it'll bring up this archive, and what we want to do is we want to just click on our Unity project and just click Validate. This will validate, you choose your team, this will validate our project, making sure it will all fit perfectly in the App Store, there's no bugs. I actually did get a few bugs, but they said they were non-critical bugs, so I just pushed through. And after it's validated, you can then click the Upload to App Store button and follow the same process as the validation. Cool, so back over into iTunes Connect, if we go over to the main section and click and scroll down a little bit, after about half an hour or an hour, maybe even a couple of hours, the build, inside the build menu, you'll see our build pop up. Now, if you, when that does pop up, you can just go up to the top right hand corner and just click Submit for Review. Now our app, this is where our app will change from prepare for submission to waiting for review. So what it'll do is it'll bring up this bunch of options here. You need to click the options that suit you. Like I said, it also might be different from what I'm doing here, but never fear, just fill out the details as best you can. The main thing is this advertisement identifier. If you've put any advertisements in your game, in-app like Unity ads or anything like that, you have to click yes. But we haven't in this project, so I'm just going to click no. And then you just want to click submit. And after it has been submitted, you'll notice that your app will say waiting for review, and that means you're done. So you have successfully submitted your app to the App Store, and you just got to wait for about a week or 2 weeks for Apple to review it, and then you'll have the ability to make it go live. And that is the end of the series, I suppose, guys. Well, the end of the main part of the series. I might do some bonus videos later if anyone has any questions, but thank you so much for getting through the entire series. If you have gotten through the series, give me a woot woot in the description, and if you've gotten through the whole series and followed along, like as in made your own project, like send me a build. Like I would play the crap out of anyone's game. If someone made a game based on any of this code or anything that I've taught, I would love to check it out. If we get enough games, I'll start reviewing people's games on a video or something. I don't know, it could be fun. But really, oh damn, didn't get that. Really appreciate you guys getting through this video. I had a blast making it. Most of the time, I actually learned a lot about coding myself, because although you know things, teaching somebody, it's actually really, really rewarding, because you have to explain every little nook and cranny, and hopefully I've done a pretty good job at that. Especially, I think I did a pretty good job at the start. I think by the end, I'm not as experienced at the end stages of development, but nonetheless, I think we've had a good time regardless. So this is the final video before the final video of the main series of this tutorial series, and I just want to say thanks for, sorry, playing the game as well as talking. I just want to say thanks for checking it out. I've had a couple of ideas for this that some people have suggested over the coming months since it's been on the App Store. And if anyone wants to take those ideas and chuck them in their game, that would be really awesome to see. Once again, send me a build or send me a link or whatever. But I thought it'd be really cool is like if you ever beat your high score, like let's say you beat your high score and the game's getting a bit boring every time you beat your high score, it could be a cool idea to have it so the bricks slowly fall out, like one by one. Like so you'd have to obviously put in each brick and layer them, and it'll be really hard to do. But imagine if the screen started shaking and the bricks started falling out one by one, and it felt like the level was falling apart as your score, as you beat your score, so it added just that extra step of pressure. Another thing is when you collect hearts, it's a good design technique to make the hearts, the heart UI display something, like maybe they flash or maybe it expands and decreases, just does something to let you know that hey, these hearts in the world are also linked to the heart UI. That's just another little thing that I was planning on adding. And also adding the ability to make it so our score is submitted every time we beat our high score, not just when we click on the button to view scores. Because not everyone's going to view scores straight after they've gotten the high score, so someone might think they've got the high score but not actually have it. Anyway guys, there are a few other things. If anyone can, there is a small little bug that in this game, and it's still live on the App Store, and it's not that big of a deal, but if anyone finds it, I'd be very interested to see if anyone finds it, but it does make it a little bit easier to get a high score. But anyway, let us know if you find the bug in the live version, and be very interesting to see if someone patches that bug. And yeah, thanks guys, thanks for playing the game. I'm just going to die now because I can. Sweet. Thanks guys for checking out the tutorial. Thanks for playing the game. Thanks for favoriting, subscribing. For anyone who did purchase the game, thank you for doing that. I'm really stoked that you guys did that, and look forward to making the next tutorial. And if you want to support the channel and still haven't bought the game, you can still buy the game. And thanks heaps guys. I'll see you next video. Ciao.